Welcome to today's explainer. We're going to completely demystify the past continuous tense. If you've ever felt like English grammar rules are just this random, chaotic collection of exceptions, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Today, we're taking what seems like a really tricky piece of grammar and turning it into a simple, logical toolkit you can actually use every single day. All right, let's dive right in with a little mental time travel, just to get our brains warmed up before we look at any actual rules. Picture yourself at your local park yesterday, right at 5 p.m. The sun's starting to go down. What were you doing at that exact moment? Were you walking the dog? Sitting on a bench? Just by answering that, you are naturally reaching for the exact grammatical structure we're breaking down right now. Take a look at this timeline. Notice how the action doesn't just happen in a single, sudden flash. It's not just one isolated dot on a line. Instead, it's stretched out, right? It forms an arc. The action is actively in progress over a specific chunk of time. That visual arc, that feeling of stretch, is the core of the past continuous tense. So formally, our sources define this tense as a way to emphasize that something was actively ongoing during a time frame in the past, rather than just starting and finishing instantly. We aren't talking about something that happened in the blink of an eye. We're setting a scene that actually took some time to unfold. Listen to the rhythm of these everyday examples straight from the source material. I was reading a book at 7 p.m. yesterday. Birds were singing. Ahmed was playing football. Notice how they all paint this vivid, moving picture in your mind? Looking closely at Ahmed here, we instantly get the context. He wasn't just kicking the ball one time and walking away. He was actively right in the middle of a continuous, ongoing game. The action was in motion, and the past continuous perfectly captures that kinetic energy. So how do we actually build these sentences ourselves? Honestly, think of it just like a simple math formula. You really only need a few basic ingredients. First, you take your subject. Then you add the past tense to be verb, which is going to be either was or were, depending on who you're talking about. And finally, you just slap an ing onto your main verb. I was playing. They were sleeping. It's an incredibly reliable, essentially unbreakable formula. And to make things even easier, our sources point out some specific time expressions that act as massive clues. We're talking about words like while, when, as, at that time, all day, or yesterday. Whenever you hear these expressions, they're signaling that an action was stretched out over time. And that means you almost certainly need to pull out your toolkit and use the past continuous. When to use it? Interrupted actions. Let's see how this builds into one of the most common and useful ways to use this tense in everyday scenarios. This is honestly where the tense really comes to life. Check this out. Notice how the longer, ongoing action is framed with the past continuous, while I was walking. That sets our scene. But then, that ongoing action gets interrupted by a sudden, quick action using the simple past tense. I saw an accident. The continuous action acts as the background, and the simple past is the sudden event that just cuts right through it. You can see this pattern repeating again and again across our sources. Just look at these. When I came home, he was sleeping. The sleeping was ongoing. Coming home was sudden. Or they were playing soccer when it started to rain. You've got an ongoing event setting a clear scene, which is then abruptly stopped or joined by a secondary action. It's such a dynamic way to tell a story. Flipping the script, negatives and questions. Now that we know how to make a positive statement, let's figure out how to modify our core formula to say no or ask someone else a question. As shown directly in the source material, creating a negative is incredibly straightforward. Remember our math formula from a minute ago? You don't have to change the structure at all. You literally just drop the word not right after your auxiliary verb, was or were. That is it. And this brilliantly illustrates how we can make our English sound way more fluent. We can seamlessly contract was not into wasn't, or were not into weren't. Saying, I wasn't studying, instantly creates a much more natural conversational tone compared to the slightly robotic, I wasn't studying. Okay, turning a statement into a question is kind of like gamifying the grammar rule. It's just a simple puzzle. You just flip the first two pieces of our formula around. Instead of subject, then was or were, you just swap them. Start with was or were, add your subject, and then keep your verb plus ing exactly where it is. Let's put those puzzle pieces together. You can see how easily you can construct basic yes or no questions like, was she listening to music, or were they running? But look at that bottom example. By simply dropping a question word like what at the very beginning of the formula, you instantly create open-ended information questions. What were you doing last night? Exact same structure, just with a what slapped on the front.
Time to practice, test your knowledge. Let's bring the energy up and put your newly acquired toolkit to work with a quick round derived straight from the Sources quiz.
Okay, here we go. What action was Sarah doing yesterday at 5 p.m. according to the past continuous tense? Read these three options carefully. Look for those structural clues we talked about and see if you can spot the one that perfectly follows our was or were plus verbing formula. If you guessed the first option, fantastic job. She was jogging in the park beautifully captures an action actively in progress at a specific past time. She jogged is a finished, sudden past action, and she will be jogging is obviously looking into the future. So option 1 is our perfect past continuous match.
If you want to keep testing your skills, I highly encourage you to scan these codes from our source materials. They'll let you jump right into some interactive puzzles and gamified quizzes to really lock in what you've learned today. Practice makes progress, right?
As you go about your day today, I challenge you to really pay attention to the flow of time. Think about how often you're interrupting your own ongoing actions. The phone rings while you're eating. Someone knocks on the door while you're reading. Start framing your everyday life using this new grammatical toolkit. So right now, ask yourself, what were you doing right before you started watching this explainer? Keep practicing, keep analyzing, and we'll catch you on the next explainer.